Thank you very much for inviting me, giving me the opportunity to speak to you guys. My kind of style is very open when I do have a talk or interview or anything like that. I will have a presentation deck and everything, and I'll go through them. I know I received a few questions from Toshia, so I'll try to address everything kind of step by step. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, any thoughts, or anything like that, just shoot them my way, and I'm happy to address them on the spot as well. All right, so let me open up this presentation. All right, can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so just I guess a quick thing on me. Thanks a lot, Toshia, for the base of the presentation as well. I am the director of business development at Veritas Ltd here in Tokyo, Japan. I'm also the co-founder, and CEO of both Reterra, which is the parent company that owns a skincare brand called ERTH, based in Singapore, as well as Turmeron International, which again is the parent company or owner of Turmeron Joint, which is a health food supplement for joint care. This is today's agenda. I guess I'm guessing this is something that you guys are familiar with, so I'll just skip over that. Overall background on me. So I'm born and raised right here in Tokyo, Japan. I went to ASIJ. I know a lot of you also currently go there. I'm sure it's quite different from when I went. I went to university in Boston at Bentley College. It used to be called Bentley College. It's now Bentley University. I got a BA in marketing there. Afterwards, I took a few years to work, and then I went back to school to get my master's in international business at LMU in London. Right out of the gate from college, I started working for Lehman Brothers in New York. This was 2007, 2008. Which I know for you guys was a long time a while back, but that was a pretty major year in the global economic situation. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with what happened there. After that, I came back here, and then I also went to London, as I mentioned, during which time I worked for Boston Scientific, which is a very large American medical device and services company. I myself personally was in the cardiology department, selling drug-eluting stents. They're little springs that go inside the heart to keep the arteries open. After I graduated with a master's in London, I joined Veritas Ltd as a managing representative based in UK for the European office, as well as headed up the new product development section in the company, at which in 2014 I became a director at the company and looking after overall the entire business development side of the company. Now, this company, Veritas, is a family business. Started by my father, as well as my aunt, together with another partner that we still have. We started almost 30 years ago. And as a company, we take care of or address a lot of things, but everything concerning beauty. We started out as beauty supplement company, and then we started adding other types of products, including, of course, skincare, healthcare, as I mentioned earlier, some joint products. We've had several joint products, as well as other health issue-based supplements. And then, of course, another side business that we had was medical devices, but primarily for the beauty industry meaning plastic surgeons, aesthetic dermatologists, things like that. In 2017, I co-founded Reterra, based in Singapore, with a few other Singaporean partners of mine, where we have now set up and now own a brand called ERTH. ERTH is a skincare brand made in Japan and of course owned, based out of Singapore. We are mainly an e-com brand with several retail and partner locations in Singapore as well as the US. And because it is a dropship, we sell to roughly 29 countries now. And then in 2020, I've co-founded another company called Turmeron International in Singapore, which is based on a new product also made in Japan for joint health. All right, so jumping right in now after my info, right into the beauty industry. Beauty industry is very much a growing industry. Currently, it's estimated to be a $511 billion industry and set to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 4.75% to $784 billion by 2025. Now, within the beauty industry, there's many segments. So a lot of the main segments, as you can see here, is cosmetics. These are color cosmetics, so makeup, skincare, anti-aging, whitening, all the things that you put on your face to make you beautify yourself a little more than just color cosmetics. Personal care includes hair care, shaving, all of those, body soap, all those things, and fragrances, which are obviously self-explanatory. Now, I'm sure you've heard most of these brands and companies. These are the top 10 largest beauty companies: L'Oreal, Unilever, P&G, Estee Lauder, Shiseido, LVMH, etc. One thing, this is revenue in billions of dollars, but one thing for you to note here is even the largest company across the entire market only has 33 billion. So that's around 7% of the entire market. So as you can see, the beauty industry is extremely segmented and fragmented. There's a lot of players. Worldwide market share, this is another very interesting one. Previously, I would say almost 10, 20 years ago, this picture looked very different. Now, as you can see, Asia Pacific has a major share within the industry, but that wasn't really the case previously. It was mostly Western Europe and North America were the largest markets, and that's what we've seen is a drastic change in the overall market, and I mean a massive change, where Asia Pacific is 46%, North America is about a quarter of the market, and then Western Europe and then Eastern Europe. What would be very interesting to see, due to history, of course, is how Africa and Latin America will play a role in the next 20 to 30 years. Another issue, I shouldn't say issue, another change within the beauty industry is, of course, the rise in online and offline, the rise in online sales and decline in offline retail sales. Obviously, this can be seen quite, clearly in other markets and other industries as well. But it's definitely something that's affecting the beauty industry quite a bit. I would say the one thing that is keeping retail alive is the nature of a lot of the products, meaning a lot of skincare and cosmetics, color cosmetic products, people still want to go and see what it feels like on their skin, what it smells like, and in terms of color, does it match their color palette? So there's definitely still that large population of the consumers that will prefer to buy things online, in retail and brick and mortar. But online is definitely growing and is making a large impact in the industry as well. This is just another one in terms of the types of products within the industry: skincare, hair care, makeup, perfumes, and then others. So one area that you consider, the two areas mainly that are growing are skincare and hair care. The others and the perfume, makeup is kind of a decreasing segment within the market. Okay, so challenges in the beauty industry. A lot of the challenges I did touch upon a little bit previously, or in the previous slides. There's challenges and there's a lot of strengths within the industry as well. The challenges, one of the big challenges, as I mentioned, was that every single person is different. So when it comes to products, one product will not work for absolutely everybody. And particularly, I'm talking about skincare, because that's really where the main segment is for myself. But at the same time, that's also kind of a saving grace, is that because there's no one product that works for everybody, it allows for many different products, many different companies, and many different brands to be able to survive within the industry. So there's pluses and minuses of that. And in line with that's a little more in terms of the consumer, but there are, of course, a lot of higher hurdles when it comes to making as well as promoting our products. It is an industry that the most of the more developed countries have a robust legal requirement, meaning where your products are made, how they are made, the types of ingredients that are used, as well as the type of marketing that you're allowed to do, the type of advertising you're allowed to do, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, which doesn't necessarily always exist in, let's say, clothing or shoes. So it has its fair bit of challenges. A lot of it is in the details. Each country will have different regulations and requirements, which I'll get into again a little bit later as well. But it's definitely something that you have to take into consideration about this industry, especially if you are trying to go international. If you're only looking at the domestic market, of course, you just have to look at what's going on in your country. But another thing is, the world is a big place, and what makes it interesting is to go and get other markets as well. So what the type of impact that the beauty industry has, and which I would say has grown quite significantly in the past couple of years, is its role in social media. Beauty is a huge segment in social media. I believe in terms of content, it accounts for around 30 to 35% of the entire social media content that is out there. So it's a big part of social media as an industry, but that also has kind of bled into other industries as well. And one of the main ones that I feel that has bled into is health and wellness. So a lot of the content creators, influencers, and KOLs, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube or anything like that, have started incorporating a lot of the healthcare or health perspective via skincare. So taking care of yourself doesn't necessarily mean only putting certain types of products and creams or oils on your face. It has to come from within. And that's kind of sparked definitely a lot more crossover between healthcare and skincare and beauty. And that's true with hair care as well. And if you want to have healthy hair, you have to be healthy as well, that kind of thing. So that's been quite interesting to see that there's definitely been a melding of industries and content within those platforms. And I guess the next question you have here in terms of licensing, it also relates to what I just mentioned earlier. I personally have never licensed any of my products. That is because I don't want anybody else to have my products, which goes into, again, something that I'm going to cover a little bit in the entrepreneur kind of section, is that, you know, if you have something good, it's yours, and that's what's going to set you apart, especially in this very segmented and crowded industry as beauty. But I've never licensed anything, but I have registered many products in many different markets. And like I said before, one of the challenges is you have to know what the local regulations are. Every country is different. Just because Japan does it a certain way, or US does it a certain way, or Singapore does it a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean any other country will do it the same way. You have to look at the details, meaning even countries will even determine not only what type of ingredients you're allowed to use in a product, but what percentage you're allowed to use those ingredients. And those percentages will change for every single country. If I have a product that I can sell in Japan and Singapore, it doesn't mean that I'm allowed to sell it in Germany or in Australia, simply because the ingredients are not right. And that is on top of course, the claims that I'm allowed to make. Japan as a market is very, very strict when it comes to advertising. Of course, ingredients as well, but especially when it comes to advertising, to the point where legally I'm not allowed to even say skin in any of my advertising unless the product is registered as a quasi drug or drug. Which again is another very interesting thing about Japan, is that there are several degrees within the regulation which will allow certain things. So when it comes to skincare, there are mainly three sections, right? There's skincare, cosmetic, the most basic one. And because it's the most basic one, most products can be called cosmetics if, of course, you are able to, you know, check off the very basic requirements. Meaning, for example, is it manufactured in a GMP, good manufacturing practices certified facility? It's a very basic thing. If it's made there, along with a few other things, it can generally be called a cosmetic. Next one up is quasi-drug. Quasi-drug is, like the name suggests, it's between skincare and drug, meaning there are far stricter regulations on what can be called what is considered a quasi-drug. That entails, generally starts from the type of ingredient you're using. Some ingredients are just classified as a quasi-drug or drug, as well as again, the interesting part is, even if a ingredient is allowed in skincare or in cosmetic, if the concentration, if the percentage is high or over a certain point, it might have to be registered as a quasi-drug. So the plus side about a quasi-drug is obviously there's all these requirements, and these requirements, there's a lot of requirements, and there's a lot more of a how can I say, capital investment necessary to register a product as a quasi-drug. But at the same time, because it is a quasi-drug, you may most likely be able to make certain claims. So you can claim anti-aging. Maybe you can claim brightening and whitening, whereas in skincare, you can't make any claims. And then finally, of course, there's drugs, which is any product that is classified as a drug has to go through the entire drug requirement protocol, whether it's, of course, regular in a pill form or topical form, that's the same thing, but has the most direct and stable ability to claim what something does. But again, it'll take you anywhere from 5 to 10 years to register that type of product, as well as, you know, upwards of $1 to $2 million per SKU. Not the ingredient, not type of product, per SKU, to register something like that. So again, there's a lot of issues. That's just Japan. Every country is different. So again, I'm sure you can tell if you want to go international, it's a, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole. You have to go deeper and deeper and deeper because it really is, especially in many countries, a highly regulated industry. So you have to have good people on your team as well. Okay, so do you have anything, any questions, particularly in the skincare industry, before I go on to entrepreneurship?
I do.
Yeah.
I was wondering if how you would differentiate your products to other companies in this industry specifically.
Oh, that is a fantastic question. It really comes down to two things: your product or your marketing, or both. My personal stance, especially in our industry, is that Me Too products will get you nowhere. There are a lot of, and when I say Me Too products, they're the copy products, right? What's interesting about our industry is that it's constantly evolving. So if you're not on your feet, you will get left behind. There's always new trends. There's always new ingredients. There's always new technologies. So it's out there. It's just a matter of you finding it or being able to capture those things and then bring it into the hands of your customers. And I would say that the easiest thing to differentiate yourself from other products comes down to ingredients. If you have an ingredient that nobody else in the world has, that's a killer USP that you have, because a lot of the ingredients within the market are generally readily available to everybody. There are huge ingredient manufacturers that have, a portfolio of thousands of ingredients that they sell to, whether they sell to small companies, mom and shop kind of factories, to the big boys like Unilever or L'Oreal. It's the same thing. The type of ingredients generally are readily available because that's also a business of itself, right? So these ingredient manufacturers want to sell to as many people as they can. So my brand, ERTH, uses a few very proprietary ingredients. The biggest one is called Japanese White Turmeric. The Japanese White Turmeric is a turmeric that only grows in our farms in Japan. We have a patent on it. We've done DNA analysis and it does not exist anywhere else in the world. So that is a very, very strong and clear USP for us. Nobody else in the world can use this product other than us, unless we rebrand it, which we have, or sell it under a different name or sell it to somebody else. But at the end of the day, it only comes from one place, and that's us. So that's really a strong point in terms of sales, but it also gives you a certain level of safety, knowing that nobody else is going to come and copy you. Because that, unfortunately, is a very major issue within our industry as well. Copy products, and when I say copy, there's two types. One type is somebody sees that a product is doing well, looks at the ingredients, and makes a very similar product under their brand. Right, so they don't exactly copy everything, but the concept and the ingredients and things like that is the same. So it's essentially a copy. Another copy products are, of course, full-on fakes, which unfortunately, the way the world is right now is very, very becoming more and more common. And unfortunately, it's also becoming more and more common on sites like Amazon or Rakuten. A lot of the marketplaces that you find, because it's very hard to actually track where the products are coming from, there's a lot of counterfeits. One of the brands that I look after and I found from the US, and we have exclusive distribution rights in Japan, and we sell upwards of Maybe 15,000 to 20,000 units a month, is having a hard time with counterfeit because it does so well, especially because it's an American product. Of course, for them, the largest market is the US. It does so well that they're in a lot of stores and a lot of distribution channels. So it's sparked lots of interest from counterfeiters. And these counterfeiters are very good. When they showed me, our account manager showed me last time I was in LA, and she said, one of this is fake, one of this is real. I couldn't tell the difference. I literally could not tell the difference. And it took them roughly 2 weeks to find the difference between them. And they had to send it to labs, and they had to send it to, and they have a huge facility. They have 31 manufacturing lines in their factory. So, it's a huge place. They have a laboratory that has 23 lab techs developing new products, looking at existing products, things like that. So it took them 2 weeks to find it. And other than the inside was very easy. It was basically water. So obviously there was a lot of complaints that your product doesn't work. Well, of course, there's nothing inside, right? Because it's fake. But the packaging was nearly identical. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And the more successful you are, the more unique you are, also the bigger target you're going to have on your back for counterfeiting. And unfortunately, there's really nothing that you can do in terms of legal action. Because a lot of these counterfeiters are very good, and they say they're to the point where I know some brands got even kicked off of Amazon because the counterfeiters made a claim that they are the official and the real products, and Amazon believed them and kicked out the actual brand owner and the actual manufacturer off of Amazon. So for those particular products, everything sold on Amazon are all counterfeit. So there's definitely dangers. So on one hand, a unique selling product and differentiation is, of course, a very, very big strength. And if you're able to protect that very, very well, you'll be all right. But of course, the more successful you are, the more eyes you're going to have looking at you as well. Sorry, I went a little bit off of a tangent there, but any other questions?
We have one question in the chat box. So,
oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll just read it out loud.
Okay, great.
The question is: when starting off as a skincare entrepreneur and having no previous reputation, how do you reassure your customers that your product is safe to use, as it's something that people can put on their skin and potentially step?
Absolutely, that is a fantastic and great question. There's a lot of facets there. Basically, one of the things is, depending on where you make your product makes a very big difference. So if a product is made in Japan, you immediately have gone over most people's hurdles of being worried about the quality of the product, because the made in Japan sticker has a very, very high, trustworthiness, with consumers' minds. So that's one way that you can do it. Now, if you don't have that, so let's say your products are manufactured in a country that potentially does not have a very good reputation about having high quality products. Well, first of all, then I would ask you, why are you making it in that country? But let's say there's something unique within that country that you have to have, that it has to be made there. Well, then you have to go into and take a look at what would make the consumers comfortable. And most of the times it's about showing where the products are manufactured, how the products are manufactured, the types of safety tests that you've run. a lot of these are requirements for majority of countries anyway, so you should have this type of information. Not everybody chooses to show that information, but that might be something that you will have to do. The thing with our brand was almost all of my products are made in Japan. And because the brand is from Singapore, my main market was initially Singapore, I didn't have any issues about the quality and the safety of my products. But to your point, what I did find very interesting was the consumers doesn't necessarily question the safety and the quality of a product, let's say if it is a product that's made in Japan, but they are very curious to know what the safety and manufacturing practices are. So it's not a matter of necessarily, is it safe for me to use it? A lot of people now with the level of information that's out there are genuinely curious and they just want to know more. So what we did also was we did a full photo shoot and movie and everything in our factory, as well as our research labs. We have 3 research centers in the world, one in Denmark, one in the UK, one in Japan. We did interviews with a lot of our formulators, as well as our factory plant managers. We showed who these people are who are making the products. We had them, write in questions if they had any questions prior to these types of interviews and things like that. And that became also a very good thing in terms of as a communication channel for our customers as well. So not only is it a matter of putting our customers at ease, it allowed us to have an open line of communication with our customers. I think that is it. But one thing that's also very interesting about the skincare industry is, as many as there are brands, there are far more types of customers. So I think what you have, the question, Tomo, that you sent, it's very, very good. Not everybody has a brain wired in that way. Quality and safety doesn't even come into a lot of people's minds when looking at anything, actually. Case in point, one of the big trends nowadays within our industry is homemade skincare. And whether that's homemade, you actually make it yourself, you buy a kit and you make it yourself, or somebody made it for you and they sell it to you. There's different types. Now the homemade kit one is generally, they're generally made in factories, which would generally be GMP certified. So there shouldn't be much of a safety issue there. But a lot of the kind of handmade, farm to skin types of products are not made necessarily in clean and safe environments. So people love those types of products, and there is a market that doesn't necessarily think about the safety and quality of products, because there's bacteria and viruses, as we know now that we've been in a pandemic for 2.5 years now. It's everywhere. So unless you make a product in a very clean and clean environment, both in terms of the manufacturing as well as the personnel working there, there will be contamination. And so when you talk to, I mean, I'm taking myself out of this kind of conversation, but if you talk to a lot of skincare people, and when I say skincare people, I mean from large companies or formulators and things like that, really scientific types of people, it blows their mind how people are using products made in such facilities or lack of such facilities, because there are products out there, especially even large products. There are many big brands who claim natural, who claim organic, who claim no preservative, types of brands that have huge contamination issues. Us being in the industry, we hear about them and see them all the time. I mean, you open up a jar of eye cream and it's covered in blue and black mold. It's because they don't use preservative. So you run the risk. And whether that is apparent when you open a product or while you're using the product, it's still there. So one thing you have to be considerate or mindful of is who your customers are. Because not everybody will think exactly the same way that you do. And again, because there's so many different customers, that's a good thing and a bad thing. But again, sorry, that was another tangent that I went off on there. But that's kind of the environment that we're in. Anything else? Okay, all right. I'll move. In that case, I will move on. And again, if there's any other questions within this section, please just shoot them out. Okay, so this was the very first question that I received from Tosh. Is, what does it take to become an entrepreneur? One thing I would say about being an entrepreneur and understanding about your understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur is there are mainly two types of entrepreneurs. Big picture here. There's the entrepreneur that is all about making money. And when I say that, I mean, it doesn't matter what industry or what kind of strategy or what kind of, products or services that they are selling. For them, the drive is, and the interesting and the passion is, how can I make money off of this? And then you have the entrepreneur where it's not about the money, it's about what they are doing. Meaning it's about the product, it's about the service that they're providing. So the passion is either the making money part, or the passion is on their product and services part. That's a very big difference in when it comes to the entrepreneur world. So you have to kind of think to yourself, what am I? That's a very big differentiating factor, because I know some very successful entrepreneurs who, we call them wheeler dealers, right? They'll do absolutely everything and they're very good at doing absolutely everything. So you can be very successful at doing that, or you can also fail at doing that as well. And failure is within this industry also, before I go any further, that's just part of that. It's part of the territory. It is going to happen. It's just a matter of when and to what extent. Okay. And then you have the entrepreneurs where it's the passion really lies on the product or on the service that they're providing. Making money off of that is just a plus. It's the secondary element, but the fact that they are doing something that they are passionate about to the physical aspect of the service is where it really lies. So I think that what it takes to become an entrepreneur, you have to figure that out first. And secondly, there's a lot of things, of course, after you decide that, a lot of things you have to be prepared for. One of those things I just mentioned is failure. You will fail. There's no two ways about it. There are no entrepreneurs that I know of that have never failed. It's about, and it's to what extent are you going to fail? Meaning, it could be, to how much debt you incur to the bank or to your investors, or it could be something that one of your sales plans doesn't work out. But the fact of the matter is, failure comes with the territory. You have to be very comfortable with it. And you have to be the type of guy or girl person who stands back up. there is no safety in entrepreneurship. There's no safety net. There's no golden parachute. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you are on your own. Nobody's going to help you, especially not any other industry or anybody else. It's changed a lot recently. I will have to say that there's a lot more of a community sense within the entrepreneur kind of world. But at the end of the day, you are alone. There's a lot of dramatization and glorification of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, especially in movies and in in kind of the financial or news and things like that. I hate to break it to you guys, but it's not the case. It's gritty, it's dirty, it is excruciatingly painful. And if you don't think you are cut out for it, you probably aren't cut out for it. As I said, there is no safety, which means that if you don't work, you're screwed. That I would say that's one of the big differences of being an entrepreneur. So entrepreneur, first of all, it means you're just a business owner, right? No matter how small or big the business is, if you started something and built it, you're an entrepreneur, no matter what industry you're in. You don't have to be in tech or in skincare or finance or anything like that, right? To be an entrepreneur, you can open up a cafe in your neighborhood. You are an entrepreneur. It's your business and things like that. So that's one thing. So the scale of your business has absolutely nothing to do with it. But at the end of the day, there are a few constants. One of the constants is if you're not working, nobody else is doing it for you. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize until they get into it. So they have this very beautiful image of being an entrepreneur. You can work from anywhere. You can work whenever you want to. If you want to take a break, you can take a break. If you want to go on holiday, you can go on holiday. To a certain extent, yes, that's true. But but when I say a certain extent, that's true only because if you're an entrepreneur, you're working 24 hours a day. There is no 9 to 5. If somebody calls you at 12 a.m., you better pick up because that's your business. That's your money. And if you're working alone, it's your own risk, and that's fine, right? But as soon as you start having employees, it's no longer only your risk. So that's also a very big hurdle that a lot of entrepreneurs potentially don't realize, especially entrepreneurs who've worked for corporations or big companies as an employee. As soon as you become an employer, you are not only responsible for yourself and your family or your husband, wife, child, your parents' well-being, you are also responsible for your employee and their children's well-being and their spouse's well-being and their family's well-being as well. So if you make a wrong decision and the company goes down and your employees are out of a job, that means that person can't potentially send their kids to college. That means potentially they can't feed their families. Now, hopefully they'll be able to find a job afterwards relatively quickly, but that's not always the case. And especially if you have and do a certain type of business, which have a very unique set of skills that are required, those types of people don't necessarily have the ability to go and find another job as well. So that's another thing. You're always going to be stressed. You are always going to be turned on, as in your brain is on. You are going to lose sleep. You are always going to be thinking about things. Okay. And if you're not doing that, again, it's probably not for you, because that means that drive and that passion to do what you're doing is just not there. So I'm sorry, there's a lot of negative things I've been throwing at you guys, but I feel like it doesn't get covered I've seen a lot of, and I've attended a lot of kind of entrepreneurship kind of networking events and lectures and things like that. And a lot of people want to sell this image of entrepreneurship, but it's really not that. And you guys are young, and you guys have a lot of opportunities ahead of you. And I just want to give you guys the reality of it. It's not easy. It's a lot of fun if you do it, and if you're the type of person that can handle it and loves and thrives in that situation. It is a lot of fun. If you're the kind of person that loves solving problems, and as soon as you hit a problem and solve it, you realize you have 3 more problems because of that problem. And then those 3 problems lead to 6 problems and 10 problems. And you're the type of person that loves taking care of those things, then great. But if you're not, if you don't like thinking all the time, I mean, granted, I don't like thinking all the time, but you just catch yourself doing it. But of course, again, sorry, a lot of negative, but there are lots of positives as well. Because if you are successful, you know you're successful because of you. Nobody else did it, right? It was you at the beginning, and then you and your team, and then you and your employees or your partners that was able to do it. So that's a very satisfying moment being an entrepreneur. Right, and of course, like I said, the making money part, when you really start making money, it's great. It's very different from getting a salary, right? Getting a salary, as long as you cover your bases from 9 to 5, you'll be okay. But when you start making money as an entrepreneur for 2 years, 3 years, you weren't making any money, and then all of a sudden you start making a profit, it's a fantastic feeling. And again, of course, yes, there is a certain amount of flexibility in your schedule as well. But again, well, in particular to that, it's, it works both ways. Yeah, you might have some time during the daytime, but you might be working all night long. You don't know, and that's that's just kind of part of the game. Sorry, that was a huge section, I guess, when it comes to what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I'll just move on. I know we're just kind of running out of time, but I would like to go through so that you guys have some questions that you can ask me as well. How have I navigated my business through the pandemic? So one of the things for me that was really, really a saving grace was that I set up my business as an e-com business from the get-go. And that really made a huge difference within the past 2.5 years. I had a lot of friends and who are brand owners, different industries and things like that, and different business models and things that were majority retail, and they took a huge hit. But simply because we had a very robust e-commerce business, we actually grew in the pandemic. Like, granted, if there was no pandemic, we would have grown far more than we did. But the fact of the matter is, we still grew, whereas tens of thousands of businesses worldwide, had to shut because of it. So what does that mean? I think that means, A, we were lucky that we were concentrating on e-com because that was the way that we wanted to do. But another thing is, you have to be flexible, because yes, there were brands that unfortunately were so heavily invested on retail, they weren't flexible enough to really start a robust e-com business. But then there were businesses that were very, very flexible, very fast, that was able to completely redesign their entire website and have a very, very strong e-com business. And they were able to survive. So agility and flexibility, at the end of the day, is very, very important, especially in a type of business like ours. How can you distinguish one's product in a segmented or saturated market? I think we did cover this earlier, but know who you are, know your products, be unique enough that you are comfortable fighting with anybody. Meaning have a product that you can fight for, whether that's a physical product or a service. Know and be confident in what you have, because that is a huge, huge, not only benefit in terms of the market, but it's a benefit to you and your own well-being as well. There is this kind of notion within the sales community, in terms, particularly salespeople, salesmen, saleswomen. They're, at the end of the day, they are humans as well, and salesmen get a very bad rep, especially in certain industries, particularly, let's say, cars. You know, they'll say and do whatever they want to get the sale. Now, to a certain extent, I'm sure that might be the case, but at the end of the day, salesmen are people too. And no salesman wants to sell a crap product. That is because it's more difficult to sell. At the beginning, it's not so bad. A lot of people turn a blind eye. But the more you sell crap products, the more you have to lie about it. The more you have to lie about it, the more of an effect it's going to have on yourself. Because you know you're lying to your customers when you're selling a product. And most salespeople don't want to do that at the end of the day. They'll do it for a little bit, but it just gets to them because they know that they're bullshitting, excuse my language, to their customers. And again, most people are very, very good people inside, and they don't want to be doing that. So have a product that if you can't stand behind it 110%, and if you can't go to bat or get into a debate or an argument of why your product is good, and be confident enough that I know that I can beat your product. I know my product is better than yours, not because of your cockiness, but because your product genuinely is superior to anything else out in the market or your competitors. That is a huge strength for you, yourself, not only in the market, but for yourself, because you won't have any fears about being challenged, about having a target on your back, because those things will happen. People will challenge you in this business, and people will put a target on your back. Sorry, I shouldn't say people will put a target on your back. You always have a target on your back from the get-go. It's just how big that target is. So if you are confident enough to have enough ammunition, armor, all of those things to protect yourself, your business, your employees, and your product and services, then you're fine. I think that kind of ties into that last bullet there. Biggest challenge or mistake that I haven't necessarily faced, but I've seen was having crap products. It's so rampant, unfortunately, in my industry. It's really disheartening, and it's very frustrating because there are brands, products, formulations, ingredients that are absolutely fantastic and do what they say they do. And then there are products that do absolutely nothing. And it's all about marketing, and it's all about who you know and how much money they've spent on advertising. And because of that, the customers get disheartened about the industry and or product line or segment as a whole. So that's very, very frustrating. And that's another thing that you'll, at least I, in my industry, have to constantly fight with, because most people now go into the purchasing kind of decision-making process at a negative level. So they go into not believing you. So that's already, you have to make them, first of all, comfortable enough to listen to you. And not only, and then after that, you have to have enough of an explanation and reasoning and kind of appeal to flip a negative to a positive, which in our industry is very, very normal these days, right? If you go into a store or read something or see an influencer talking about a product, most of the people aren't looking at it nowadays thinking, oh, that's cool, I'm going to buy that. or oh, that sounds very interesting. The first reaction is, oh yeah, that's bullshit. And then you listen more, oh, maybe it's not no bullshit. Oh, that sounds interesting. And then it goes from there. But that the first initial step is very negative. It's the opposite. So that's definitely a challenge, which doesn't necessarily happen with other industries. There are plenty of industries that people walk in on a positive note, because their mindset is not like that, or they haven't been burned previously. So that's definitely something we have to keep in mind. Okay. How does a large multinational company remain agile in a startup industry? Okay, well, most multinationals, I'm excluding the big big former Zaibatsus and Chaebols and things like that out of Korea, but most companies started out as a startup. Or actually, all companies started out as a startup, right? Because somebody had the idea to start a business, and that's what they did. It's along the way that it has become a large multinational, and they lose that. Most recently, of course, you're looking at guys like Jeff Bezos started Amazon. Okay, granted, he started it 20, 30 years ago, but he started in his basement. It was very much an entrepreneur startup. He had no idea how large it was going to get, but along the way, people lose that. The more larger you get, the more successful you get, the less agile that you will become. And that's just the fact of life, unfortunately. And now how a lot of the multinationals are kind of getting around that is by acquiring very small, agile companies who are able to address a lot of the issues these big companies cannot. So if you are looking at becoming an entrepreneur, I think, yes, you will already kind of be agile. Because again, at the beginning, you will be a very, very small group. It'll be either yourself or with a partner or a group of 3, 5, whoever it might be. But you won't, it'll come very, very naturally to you because that's just who you are. When it comes to being a large company, there are so many cogs. I don't think there's any actual effective structure for any multinational large company to be agile. The world is not set up that way. There are far too many regulations, government regulations, as well as industry regulations. Now, industry regulations are not necessarily legal, but there are certain elements that kind of business laws or industry laws, not legal laws, but there's just certain things that you're supposed to do or expected to do. And when you start combining all of those things, after a certain size, I don't think it's very possible for companies to be truly agile, like a small business or small to medium sized business ever can. And the importance of agility in being traditional is that most companies probably should be both, because most people are very comfortable with how things traditionally work. So if you are the type of company and have a product which is very disruptive to your market, that's another thing. Because most likely you will attract people who have the very same mindset as you. But if you are, let's say in my industry, skincare industry, I have to have both types of people in my companies. I have to have people who understand and know how things traditionally work, because that's just how the channels and businesses are structured in my industry. So I have to have people who know that, who understand that, and who have the ability to utilize those channels or systems. But at the same time, I have to have people who have the mental agility to think outside of the box as well. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to know, first of all, of course, your industry and your market. And then you build your team and your company around that. What will be the most efficient and effective company structure, or business strategy, or types of employees that is going to work for what you're trying to do. So it's not just one or the other. You have to remember, traditional is not bad, traditional is not good, agility is not bad, agility is not good. It's a combination, right, with anything in life. And I think that that's one thing you'll start to learn as an entrepreneur as well. There's a lot of gray areas, and there's a lot of good with a little bit of bad, and there's a lot of bad with a little bit of good in it as well. And you have to be able to discern that and be comfortable in that as well. A lot of these points, actually, I think we covered the first point. I think we did cover. What type of university would you say is good for entrepreneurship? There's some great universities that cover entrepreneurship, but I think you got a sense of my thoughts about being an entrepreneur. You can't be taught it. If it's not coming out from you, it's probably not for you. So while, yes, if you are the type of person that you're an entrepreneur, that drive is there and you can do it, then I think there are universities that can give you that background information. But another thing you have to keep in mind is, even after you graduate, after that background information, you're still on your own. You're still going to have to learn more about the industry you're in, the service you're providing, the products that you're selling. And I mean, I would almost say that's true for any university education. It gives you a base, but at the end of the day, you still have to learn a hell of a lot more to be successful afterwards. So yes, I would say it's more of a skill or a mindset, more than something that you could learn. What type of skills in universities teach entrepreneurs? Well, again, I don't know if it's a skill that you can teach. People will inherently have it, or they'll pick it up along the way. I know plenty of people who were previously very, very, very corporate who became entrepreneurs, and they picked it up along the way, or they got very frustrated being on the corporate ladder, and realized that they could do something else, and it was within them to do it. So again, it's not just knowing before going into college, right? Your guys' age, or being in college and knowing, or immediately after about college. It can come out at any time, or it may never come out. That's just the way it is, and you just have to be very in tune, I guess, with yourself about knowing that. Okay, challenges for the future. It comes back to, in my mind, about being agile. Technology is having a huge impact on every single industry worldwide right now. So obviously we all know that's something that most likely you guys are going to have to be very, very adept at. I'm learning now. I'm struggling, I'll be honest. It's going at a much faster pace that I can understand. A lot of the basis of the technology and the platforms that are around today is not something I am familiar with, and I'd like to think I'm not much older than you are, but obviously I am, and especially when it comes to technology. So you guys have a very different educational background than I do, because when I was growing up, my first computer class, I was in elementary school. We had computers all through middle school and high school. In college, we used laptops, presentations, and et cetera, et cetera. I am the era that when I was in Boston, Facebook just got started. So because I was in Boston, my university was one of the first universities that had access to Facebook. So technology and growth of technology is something I'm very familiar with. I get it. But my grasp of what technology and IT is today is very different from you guys. So that's a huge strength. And I think that's something that's going to be something that might inertly already be in your system, that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because your brains are already wired to fully understand what all of these things are, it might not be an issue for you because it comes very natural to you. That being said, chances are you'll probably have to pick up a few other things that are already existing or may not exist now, but might exist in the next 5 years, 20 years, whenever you're doing or in business. So if you are an entrepreneur, know your strengths, but at the same time, fully understand your weaknesses, because that's where you're going to fail the most. Okay. All right, so great. All right, now we're to Q&A. I'm sorry, I know it's supposed to only be in an hour or over an hour already. But if there are any questions that you guys have.
I have a question.
Yep.
So I don't know exactly how COVID had impacted the skincare industry to like what extent, but for you personally, how do you think your priorities for marketing or sales or business in general has changed since COVID has been in the picture?
So again, the saving grace for us was most of our activities was online. So our advertising, of course, our social media and our shop was online, right? And so I didn't have my own store or anything like that. So all of the systems were already in place. We didn't have to pivot much in terms of sales, marketing, and advertising. What did affect us, and what is still affecting us very, very, to a very large extent now, is the supply chain. There's a lot, of course, of work that goes into making a good and real skincare product. One of the notions that I like to really break people's minds is skincare is not just mixing something in your kitchen and putting it on your face. That's not skincare, that's not cosmetic. Real skincare is made by chemists and different levels and educational backgrounds of chemists. So you have, we have formulators, like I mentioned, in Denmark, UK, and in Japan. Why? Because they all specialize in different things. What a lot of people don't realize is skincare is absolutely chemistry. Meaning, good formulation or good formulator is not just putting, oh, that's this one and that's this one and this and then blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, it mixed really well, it's done. No, a good formulator will actually look at the molecules. And in fact, most good formulators won't even ask about what the ingredients necessarily are. They're more interested in what molecules are we talking about. And then they'll start implementing what is the right stability and balance between X, Y, and Z molecules that can produce a very stable, safe, and efficient product. So that takes a lot of time. The formulas that I currently sell, it takes a minimum of 2 to 3 years for me to make. And that's obviously I'm myself are very, very picky about the products that I sell, but that should be how long it takes to constantly test and retest again, and then go back to the drawing board if something isn't right or if it's not as effective as you want it to be. So it takes a lot of time. Why I'm saying this is, of course, it takes a lot of time, but in line with that, there's a lot of supply that needs to go into all of these steps. You have to have a steady supply of the ingredients. You have to have a steady supply of the packaging, right? The bottles, the jars, and then each component of every single one of those jars. If you have a jar, generally 3-4 components and you're done. Most of them are plastic. Okay. If you have a pump, like, so this is that's not one that's I shouldn't have showed you that one because that's still a prototype. So this is a product that I sell, right? It has an up and down feature. Inside there are several gears and other mechanisms that help you do this. So each of those components are made by somebody. And that means those people have to look at supply chain issues. You open it up, it's a whole nother thing inside as well. So what bottles that used to take roughly 4 to 6 weeks to manufacture are now taking 3 to 6 months. So that's obviously a very big difference in terms of our scheduling. Another thing that COVID has affected us is the price of things. Price has skyrocketed because, again, supply chain issues, worker shortages, all sorts of things. And even shipping alone for us, because our products are very sensitive, we don't like to send products by sea, which a lot of which a lot of industries do, and that's fine because they're non-perishables. But we like to send things by air. It's a lot more stable, and we have a lot more control over it. Air shipping has increased 5 times. So I'm sure you can imagine when something is 5 times as more expensive just for shipping, there's no added value on your products at all, right? It's going to put a huge pressure on your margin structure. You can either, if you have a margin structure that you can handle that, great. It's probably going to cut into your profits, but if you can handle it, great. But most people and most businesses can't handle a 5-fold increase on shipping. So unfortunately, we're still living in that now. So we're trying to navigate as efficiently and as effectively as possible, but there's just certain things that are out of our hands, and you just kind of have to bite the bullet and hope that everything goes past and gets over all of this soon.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So this question is for like people who want to be future entrepreneurs, but let's say you have the charisma, you have the ambition, you have the product or service, but you constantly get rejected by investors or people from VC, etc. I was wondering what type of tips you have on how to pitch to investors or VC.
Okay. Full disclosure, I'm probably the worst person for you to ask me that. And the reason why is I don't like VCs and outside investors. So I've never done it. There's several reasons for that. The main reason is it's my company. I don't want anybody else having any say in it. Or it's my company or myself and my partner's company, and I don't want anybody else having a say. And that comes with its own issues as well, of course. Because myself and my partners like having full control of our company, we have done so with the full understanding that growth and revenue might be slower for us. And that's something we're happy to accept, because we would prefer to have our own companies, make our own decisions with the things that we do, and then reap the benefits from it. Now, again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to put you off of VCs or investors or anything like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. It's just what you're comfortable with doing and what you want your business to look like. I know people who have been very, very successful with VCs or angel investors or actual, major shareholders or anything like that, and they become very wealthy off of that, off of their ideas, and that's fantastic. At the same time, I know a lot of people who have been really, really badly burnt, people who have been kicked out of their own companies, people who have been basically working for somebody else now. So you're no longer an entrepreneur. On the outside, it looks like you're an entrepreneur, but in reality, you're working for your investors. So why are you really doing this is another, issue. So I think I'm sorry. I can't give you a very good advice on what to do or how to attract investors. But I do have to say, if let's say you can't find investors initially, but you have a business that you really want to do. Make money yourself first. Go work for a company for a few years. Save up enough to have a seed money to start that business that you want to. And what you'll find is if your business becomes successful, money comes to you. Because VCs and investors are constantly looking. That's what they do, right? It's one thing to invest in companies, but another half of their business is finding businesses to invest in. So they're constantly looking for investment. And if they see a company is doing well, they're going to want to come to you, which puts you actually in a much better position than going straight up to a VC and saying, hey, I have this business plan. Do you want to invest? Now they're asking you, do you want my money? That puts you in a very, very different situation. Again, do what you think is right for you and what makes you comfortable. For me, I did the whole corporate thing. As you can see, I worked for a lot of big companies. It was a huge learning experience, and to be frank, I wouldn't change anything that I did. It gave me a lot more of a understanding of how companies work or how companies don't work. And that's what made me realize I'd rather work for myself or in a capacity that benefits myself. Obviously, more risk involved, because if I fuck up, I'm the one that fucked up. But at the same time, I don't have somebody looking over my shoulder telling me what to do, telling me what time I have to be where. That'll come in entrepreneurship as well, but it should be you telling you, I have to go to this meeting. I have to make that phone call. I have to reply to this guy. You know, I personally am quite a big procrastinator. I admit it. So one of my personal challenges is replying to emails on the spot, calling people on the spot. But you get used to that, to the point where you stop thinking about it and say, yeah, well, if you're not going to do it, nobody's going to call him. But there's another opportunity that you might miss, something like that. So, sorry, again, off on a tangent. But yeah, but before, if you're already talking to VCs and things like that, I'm assuming you had this entire thought process that this is what you want to do, and that's fine, and that's great. I wish I had more useful information for you. But for those who are kind of still unsure, make sure that's what you want to do. Because once you take somebody else's money, sorry to say, also legally speaking, you're theirs. At least, I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with the US laws, but in Japan, if somebody invests in your company and they have supported your business, legally speaking, they have the right to your business as well. That's something you have to keep in mind. Any other questions?
I had a question about what you said earlier about agility in your brand. How do you manage the risk of losing customers due to like veering away from your selling point or value proposition?
Oh, yeah, that's that's a great question. That happens all the time, and that's inevitable. It's about at what rate they're doing it. So in our industry, unfortunately, loyal customers are hard to come by. There are many more industries and products out there that naturally command a high loyalty rate. And that can be due to product or that could be due to brand. But the inherent type of product, skincare, is the overwhelming majority of people like trying new things. And that's something, whether male or female, more prevalent, of course, in female than male, because I guess men are just wired differently. If we find something that we like, we tend to buy and use the same thing for a very long time, right? But in terms of the type of customers, I mainly sell to women. We have male customers as well because my products work for both men and women, but most of my customers are women. And most of my customers are between the ages of 25 and 45. Depending on the country you're in, you're going to have different types of consumer behaviors, even within the same age group. In my case, generally in our industry, the younger they are, the less loyal they are to a product. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are Chanel and have the absolute best branding and brand loyalty in the world, or if you are just some new guy coming out. Simply because of the demographic that you might be targeting, you're not going to have loyal customers. So you just know your customers and target that. A lot of companies are fantastic at knowing who their customers are and know that they won't get a repeat purchase, for example. And a lot of Korean brands are like that in my industry. They know their target audience is between the age of 18 to 25, which has the worst worst repeat purchase rate in all customer bases. It's because their interests are very different than somebody who is in their 50s or 60s. A customer in late teens, early 20s doesn't have that many skin issues. So the reason why they buy products is it looks nice, it smells good, it's packaged beautifully, they heard about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just their consumer behavior. And a lot of brands fully understand that and have structured their product portfolio or their brand or their product or their company to supply that. So that's why a lot of Korean companies come out with new products every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, there's a new product that comes out. And that's how they retain customers, because they know that their customers is not interested in using the same product twice, but they are very interested in trying a new product. So that's how they do that. So know who your customers are. And again, if you are confident and have a good product and have a good story and a good solid brand, you should have a higher repeat purchase rate, assuming that's the target that you're going for. So I know maybe I couldn't give you a straight answer, because it's very, very dependent on who your customer is and what your product is and how you set the company up and your strategy up, of course. I have customers who, of course, buy my product once or twice and they go away. But then I have customers who buy from me, 10, 11 times a year, which is very high. Very grateful that people understand what my products are and can understand how and why my products work so well. And thankfully, we have a very, very high repeat purchase rate. We have more than double the standard skincare repeat purchase rate for our company. So that's a very, very good sign. But losing customers it's just part of the game. It's always going to happen, especially in skincare. So you have to always look for new customers.
We have a question in the chat really quickly.
Yeah, sorry, I'm always missing the chat. Yep.
No. So James said, as you said, there's a high chance for the market to spread to South Africa and Africa. And how are you planning on that expansion?
Yeah, that's a great question. Myself, our product, I design my products for everyone to use. And when I say that, my products are not designed to look at symptoms. So if you're a skincare user, I'm sure you're very familiar with terms like when people ask you what your skin type is. Are you dry skin, oily skin, combination skin, sensitive skin, etc. I believe that's a very that's the wrong way to look at it. I feel the skin is something that's inherently, as you know, as the saying goes, the largest organ in your body. So if you take care of your skin, those things shouldn't be an issue. What I mean by that is, if you have oily skin, products that people sell to you, companies sell to you, will be mainly alcohol based. You'll have a toner which is heavily alcohol based, and especially maybe you guys are using it now. I know I did when I had a lot, you know, I still have acne, but when I had a lot of acne and things, I was told, here's this alcohol based product, wipe it, it's going to dry you out, and then you're going to be better. But the reality of it is, the reason why you have oily skin is because your skin is actually dry. Right? So oil production is your skin's defense mechanism to retain moisture. So if you have oily skin, really inside you have dry skin, and your skin is just trying to compensate for that. If you all of a sudden put alcohol on it and take all this oil out, you're drying your skin out again. And then you go into this loop, and it is down this rabbit hole of drier and drier skin. It's because you're looking at the symptoms, you're not really looking at what the root issue is. So I've designed all of my products to look at what the real skin issue is. And most of the times it's that skin has some sort of imbalance. And to put it in more broad terms, your skin is not exactly the healthiest that it could be. So all of my products are designed to help the user's skin health. Because of that, it takes time. We don't supplement any components within the skin. So we're not putting any extra hyaluronic acid in there. We're not putting more collagen in there. We're actually putting ingredients into your skin that will help your own skin make these components, because that's what your skin is supposed to be doing. I mean, there's already all like hyaluronic acid and collagen, all of these things existing in your skin. Your skin is just not maybe producing enough of it. So we're trying to help your skin to make more. And that, of course, that's one of the components of our ingredients, one of the facets, but as an example. So when we look at who can use this product, because we're not looking at symptoms, we're not looking at skin types, anybody can use this product. So whether you are 20 years old or 50 years old, you can use this product. Whether you live in a very hot and dry climate, like Saudi Arabia, which some of our customers are in, or in Singapore, where it's hot and humid, you can still use the exact same product. And same thing with, you know, we have customers, like I said, in Saudi Arabia, Singapore, of course, in Finland, in Norway, Denmark, of course, you know, all sorts of different regions of the world, that the environment is very different. So generally, people will say, oh, I live in a humid environment, so I can't use oily products. It's like, well, you should be basing that on how those products work, not necessarily in how the environment is in. So to answer your questions, how am I, you know, taking a look at South America or Africa? I think we as a brand, as a product, are already very well positioned to enter into those markets once those markets are enterable, I guess. Unfortunately, right now, the customer base is not very strong there, which is why you can see within the market share, it consists of a very, very small market. But Latin America is growing very much. Beauty is a huge part of Latin American culture. And so as an industry, it's definitely growing very, very rapidly. We have a lot of Hispanic customers. So again, going back to the type of people that can use it, everyone from very, very pale skin to very, very dark skin can use it in all the spectrum, no matter what your ethnic, cultural background is. It really doesn't matter. And I think that's a strength of our brand. And that also kind of plays a role in our agility into addressing a lot of our customers' needs worldwide. Yeah, no problem, my pleasure. Any other questions?
Okay, so in that case,
right.
Mr. Shinji, thank you very much for coming to our
No.
seminar.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so thank you very much. And once again, we will send you any other information for upcoming seminars. So keep in touch with email. Yeah, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you in our next seminar.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. I think you guys might, Tosh, I don't know if they have my email or not, but please feel free to pass my email along to everybody. And if you have any questions, reach out anytime, or whether it's email or Instagram or anywhere. Or I know, Adam, I see you attack all the time, but if you guys see me, please feel free to, speak up and say hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a nice Sunday.